All right, welcome to the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs. And we have an episode for you today. We are talking about the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. I know that the folks that listen to this podcast are entrepreneurs, you're small business owners and leaders, and you want to be successful. And Raj and myself have worked with many small business owners, many aspiring entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, and there are some key mindset, some key ways of thinking. I don't know. When I think of a mindset, Raj, I think of a pathway of thinking. There's a worn pathway of how you go about and process information. Raj, how you doing today? I didn't even say hello to you. How are you doing today, Raj?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Drew. Had a very, very successful trip to the West Coast last week. Back at my home office now, ready to go back and record this session.
Nice. Moving and grooving all over the place. That is what you do, Raj, helping companies. So the mindset of a successful entrepreneur, or the pathway of thinking that successful entrepreneurs have. What are some of the key things? Obviously, everybody's different, everybody's unique, and there are differentiations, and that's what makes the world exciting and different entrepreneurs exciting. We see the ones that are, very out front with their company, and you see the ones that are more behind the scenes with their company. So there's different personality types, behavior styles, whatever. But the mindset, the way that you would kind of attack life, attack your business, I really am interested in hearing your thoughts. You've got 6 different items that you want to share with us, 6 different mindsets that you want to share with us. So let's jump into it. What is number 1?
The first one I would say is the growth mindset. If people want to go back and look at it, Dr. Carol Dweck did a fantastic job on identifying that. There is a beautiful book on the mindset. So I would start with that piece of it. If you look at a lot of the successful people, basically it starts with their mindset. So there are 2 mindsets, which when we go back and look at it, there are people where we call the growth mindset. That is what entrepreneurs have. Then you have what we call the fixed mindset. That is just most of the followers and people who are in the corporate jobs. Nothing wrong with it, but they look at the world very differently and they plan and execute differently. So a simple example, when I have a growth mindset, I am always focused on learning. They're always looking at it. The curiosity is huge, and they're always going back and say, hey, why is this working? Why is this not working? How is it working? How is it not working? That is always happening in an entrepreneur mindset. The second part of it is they love challenges. Because entrepreneurship, almost 80% of the businesses fail within 5 years. So if you're not going to go back and seek challenges, entrepreneurship is not for them. And they're constantly looking at things and they want to tweak things, continuous improvement. They're constantly going back and saying, what can I tweak this? How can I take this? If it is my sales process, my product, my service, my operations, my accounts payable, it doesn't matter what it is. They're always looking at it and trying to say, what can I do from that? And this is the biggest piece of it, is they really, really grow from their failures. What does it mean? They are not afraid to fail. And as soon as they fail, they want to go back and say, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
Basically, if you look at the fixed mindset, as soon as they have a failure, it is almost like they crack, they freeze.
Yeah.
That is a huge difference between a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And for them, they know that we need to work hard. We need to accept that it takes a lot of time and energy to be successful. The key for success is not just being smart, but even working hard. The combination of the 2. Now I go back and talk about it from the book Grit. Basically, Grit is a fantastic book. Angela Duckworth wrote about it. And in that, if you go back and look at it, they need to have the passion, they need to have the perseverance. The combination of 2 is the grit. And that is what the key to success for an entrepreneur is. And the other piece of it is they're curious, they keep on learning from their mistakes, but a growth mindset person really go back and try to understand and learn from everybody else's successes. That is the biggest piece of it from a growth mindset. So Drew, you have some great best practices. You have worked with a lot of people. And if I see 2 or 3 best practices from you, that is what I pick up and say, hey, let me go pick up and stuff. Like simple thing, you are so advanced in technology and the use of the new tools and technology piece of it. I'm always picking those from you. because
Yeah.
I'm saying, you know what, I am not a tech person, but if I have a best practice from Drew, I take it and work on it. And that is what entrepreneurs do very, very well. So that is the first fundamental piece of it. So if you look at a lot of small businesses, like they start with 5 employees or 10 employees, and after 15, 20 years, they get stuck being in 15 to 20 employees. So what
Mm.
they had is they had a great idea. They had seen an opportunity, they got in there. So everybody thinks that is a growth mindset, but really they have seen an opportunity, they entered, but they're in a fixed mindset. They focused on the validation piece of it, and they're continuously running the way it should be run. So after 30 years, they're still 15 to 20 employees.
Because that
They're
was kind of the
maintaining.
lid. Their thinking was the lid on the organization. Their inability to change with the changing conditions, maybe, and the changing opportunities out there. They had an idea in their head. They executed on that. So great execution skills, right? But
Yes.
but an inability maybe to continuously grow, learn, develop, and maybe even lacking the desire to. Maybe they said, this is all I want, this is all I want to do. And so I guess when we talk about a mindset of a successful entrepreneur, we're talking about an entrepreneur that is continuing to challenge themselves,
Yes.
continuing to grow, continuing to develop, continuing to learn. And just like you, Raj, picking up skills from others, I think about it as tools in my tool belt.
Yes.
That, there are certain things that I can add to my tool belt, and we're all going to be different in what we do and what we add and what we maybe delegate within our organization. But overall, that mindset and that thinking of, hey, there's this technology called AI. How can I leverage that for my business? What new opportunities are going to be out there? Even
Yes.
thinking about, I've been thinking about, I don't mind sharing this idea. I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it, but even robots, right? So Elon Musk, I heard an interview with him a few years ago, has a desire to create robots that you can have in your home at a price where every person could afford one in their home. They're about the price of a car, is what he's anticipating. Okay, we know that as more people do it, the price will come down. But I thought, okay, people have cars and they rent them out. That's a whole business. It's called enterprise and all these big companies that we get rental cars from. What if
Yes.
you had a company that rented out robots for people that had tasks they needed done at their home, right? You need a hole dug. I can send a hole digging robot to your house. You pay the day rate, right? And so different things like that. That growth mindset, from what I understand and reading other entrepreneurs, it's this ability to add or subtract or even modify something that already exists. So I had a mentor once, successful entrepreneur, and he said most of my best practices were for my business were found in, or I should say this, most of my innovations for his business were found in other industries. He went and looked at other industries and said, oh, that's great. I can apply that to my business. I would say that's a growth mindset.
Yes. I agree with you. Basically, we call it associative thinking. So you go back
Mm,
and look at diverse ideas from diverse businesses, try to bring them, combine it, and come up with a new share. That is the innovation piece of it. And almost all of your growth mindset people and entrepreneurs who are very, very successful, that comes naturally to these people.
mm,
And the second piece, building on what you just said, is the visionary piece of it. They're always
yes.
visionary. They craft a future that is very, very comfortable for it. If you look at Steve Jobs, which is a simple example because everybody knows Apple, how Steve Jobs took a failing company and really made it so successful.
Hmm.
But if you look at it from a small business perspective, basically, when I started my business in 2008, I started with certain products and services that I wanted to offer to the company. I was very, very focused on small and medium sized businesses because I could add so much value. But if you look at the first 3 years, it was a huge struggle. So I'll
Yeah.
give you one example. Basically, there was something called career coaching for students. A friend of mine from Dallas created this. I was working with him. We took it and I really utilized it. Both my kids were results of that. I have excellent service. But you know what? We tried for 9 months and I could not really sell the product
Mm,
because the market was not right. So timing
yeah.
was very. So a lot of people would have given up on the business. I said, no, you know what? I will put that on hold and I'll go after something else.
Yeah.
Then I was offering a lot of products in 2012 and 13, which helped me to go back and generate revenue. But if you fast forward from 2012 to 2022, 21, and 23, it is a total slew of products. I'm selling more of systems like
Mm,
EGA, Entrepreneur Growth Alliance. I went back and looked at it, understood all of my customers, and said, you know what? There are several of my clients who are 20 employees, 30 employees, 40 employees, and they want a cost effective solution. They don't
yeah.
mind learning as a group, they don't mind learning as companies together. And that's how this product came because of the needs of my one segment of my clients. Then there are
Yeah.
certain other companies, they really don't want to go back and work with others, but they want to go back and build their own systems. And that's how entrepreneur growth operating system came into picture.
Mm,
And that is the vision piece of it. You're always going back and looking at it and saying, hey, what do my clients need, and what can I go back and do to help them?
yeah.
And you pointed out a very, very good point, picking up best practices from the other industry. There's so many tools I have taken built into these tools where I really practiced and learned during my GE days. I left GE 16 years ago, but the
Hmm.
tools and the toolkit, because they were so advanced, their skill set was so much, we learned so many best practices around the globe that I could take it, transform them, customize it, and really help the small businesses grow.
That's so
One of
good.
the so that is some of the things from a visionary perspective. You're always going back and looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought I cut you off. Did you have something you were going to share there?
So there was one point I wanted to make here is if you go back and look at it, once you have the system, you can have growth as a process. If you look
Okay.
at it, it sounds like an oxymoron, right? Growth as a process. How can that be, right? But if you go back and really create a system and year long, if you start consistently following that, it becomes a process. Yes, you'll be tweaking here and there,
Mm,
but overall, there are certain activities, if you do consistently year over year, it will always give you an assurance that you're growing.
yeah.
And that is one of the signatures of what we do is help companies establish growth as a process.
Yeah. That's good. So we've got this growth mindset that we have first. We're constantly learning. Successful entrepreneurs constantly learning, constantly challenging themselves. Problem solving, right, is a big one. And
Yes.
feeding right into that is this visionary mindset, this way of thinking where you're futuristic thinking, right? Is another
Yes.
way that some might say it. You're thinking about the future. You're thinking about what the needs of the future are. I even think one of the skills in this is prognosticating, fancy word for trying to foretell the future, not in a woo-woo spiritual way, but just looking at the current environment, looking at technology and saying, what is the future? What does the future look like? And can I create something that'll meet the needs of the future?
Yes.
And that's that visionary thinking. I think, yes, I think absolutely people are born with that and people have it. My mom said my grandfather, who I didn't really know all that much, but he was always had ideas, right? Always he's idea guy. And he died broke. So he didn't execute on them, right? So it's not
Yes.
enough to just have the ideas. You have to have that growth mindset, challenge yourself, take on new things, problem solve, add value, have a vision, have a picture of a preferable future. I think is the best idea of a vision. You can see kind of out in the future, and then you can almost pull it into reality, right? You're pulling the future to you, but you're also pulling yourself into the future, right? And
Yes.
it's this ability to do that and kind of see what's out there. But that can't be enough because, like you said, you have to have the hard work, the grit, the perseverance, and all those qualities as well
Yes.
to persevere. Those are great. So okay, so we've got two so far. What's the third one?
The third one is all about change, basically flexibility
Mm,
in your approach. That is what we call. So a lot of people think for being an entrepreneur, you need to be really, really persistent. I agree to start with, but one of the things I have learned it is you need to know when to stop and be changing. So when to pivot as well. You don't want to
that's
be
good.
persistent and go to the end of it. There are certain analysis you need to keep on persisting, but once you have enough information, you need to be comfortable with change
Yeah.
and then pivot from there. And that is a big thing from it. Again, I'll take a big company example because everybody, Nokia, one of the top
Mm.
cell phone companies. But when the touch phones came, pretty much it did not change. So it
Yeah.
became pretty much died, the business died. Whereas Samsung really adapted it and they really became successful.
Yeah.
And that is what some people go back and look at it and work with it. So you look at a lot of small businesses. I have a customer basically during the pandemic in 2021, they make drinks. So they have the manufacturing capabilities to make energy drinks. But if you
Uh-huh.
look at 2021, nobody was looking at drinks. But the biggest one was what? Basically sanitizers, right? Basically everything to do
Mm.
with that piece of it. So
Yeah.
they really pivoted to that and started making the hand sanitizers. And they really went back and pivoted to that and they changed so that they could go back and fill in the manufacturing lines, make some money, and help the community as well at the same time
Yeah.
because there was so much shortage of those. And that is the kind of change we need to bring to this people. They be receptive to understanding what is going on in the customer, what is going on in the environment piece of it, and then pivot so that you can go back and change and adapt. That is the reason why persistence is important, but it is not the end goal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, great example on that drink company. I mean, that's what it's all about. I think that's such a good thing because I've been challenged with that over the years of, okay, there's persistence, and then there's at maybe at some point recognizing, like you did with the student thing, where you kind
Yeah,
of help
career
students,
coaching.
career coaching. You know it works because it
Yes.
successfully worked for your kids. Your kids are wildly successful, but it just didn't sell, and so you have to be able to pivot. You can't be, in my opinion, with something like that, you can't be so married to it that you kind of die on that hill, so to speak.
Yes.
You've
Yes.
got to be willing to say, look, this isn't what the customer wants, the client wants, the market doesn't want it. We live in a have it your way society where we expect everything to be easy, accessible, a smooth process. A lot of what I talk about with clients is how easy is it to buy something from you? Do you make
Yes.
it easy, or is it extremely difficult to buy from you? And part of that is just thinking through, what is that customer experience, and am I willing to change so that I can reach more customers and grow this business?
Yes. Yes.
That's perfect. Okay, what's number 4?
The four is basically taking risks.
Mm,
Because as an
yeah.
entrepreneur, you should always be there and then you're steering your ship. It is almost like you need to take risks, but you're always constantly monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the Titanic. When you see that big block, don't increase the speed, but make sure you can maneuver that.
Right.
Because that was one of the best ships, the biggest ships, but they were taking unnecessary risks. And that is what
Yes.
it is. So you need to take calculated risk. That is the biggest piece of it. So I know one young engineer, I'm talking about a few years ago. He was in IT information. So he was working for a company and the boss was very arrogant to him. I'm just giving an example to go back and show that. So he was so ticked off that he walked out of lunch. During the
Mm.
lunch, this top notch programmer left. And guess what? Within a week, he said, you know what? I'm going to show something. And he started his own company in IT. And he started it exactly opposite the company he was working for.
Wow.
And 20 years fast forward, right now he has 3,000 employees.
My goodness.
He was never even thinking of it.
Yeah.
But he went and said, you know what? I know the skill set. I know this. I don't want to do this. And he went back and started his own company. And he took a risk. That was a big risk for somebody, right? Just quitting a job and starting a company. But he
Yeah.
worked very hard, 2 ways. He would followed everything that was there. And today he's one of the best business people. He's still a
Mm.
great programmer, but he has got 3,000 people working for him across 4 different countries.
Yeah. Wow.
And that is piece of it. So he was comfortable. He took a calculated risk, and then he was steering those things.
Yeah. And I think the risk part is so important, and the calculated part, that is huge, because if you don't have it in you to take the risk, then maybe the better option for you is to be an entrepreneur, right? Be a
Yes.
change agent inside of an existing organization, and you can elevate yourself and make a lot of money and impact a lot of change, create a lot of change in an organization. But if you have that risk aversion, then that might be a key indicator that maybe being an entrepreneur isn't the right spot for you, and you need to be more of an entrepreneur. So that's a great, I think it's good. I think it's good for all of us to step back and say, do I have what it takes? Am I willing to pick up? Because I think, and I don't know, you tell me, are these like competencies, Raj? Can these be learned, or are these just who you are? Where do they rank for you?
So for me, it is a combination, a little bit of
Okay.
nature and a little bit of nurture. It is always
Okay.
going to be a combination. The growth mindset definitely is going to be something you're born with it, and it is very,
Mm,
very difficult to change. I can see that
okay.
piece of it. I mean,
Okay.
people say you can learn and stuff, but if you go back and look at the learning cycle, you can learn to a certain level where we call it conscious competency.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about it, you can be competent in it, but it doesn't come naturally to you. So
Okay.
you don't become unconscious competent. So if I think about it, I can do it. If I don't think about it, it doesn't come to me.
Okay.
So that is where the learning and the nurturing piece of it is.
Okay.
So certain aspects, you need to be good at it. You need to get comfortable, and it should be unconscious to you. Like you and me, if we go back and somebody wakes up at 3 in the morning, 15 minutes, we are ready to coach somebody. It comes out very naturally. We are very, very comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But if you go back and wake me up at 3 o'clock and ask me to do some accounting or finance, it is going to
Yeah.
be a
No,
nightmare.
thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you. So we can, both of us understand, we got the MBAs, we got the financial, we know how to take care of all of those things.
Yeah.
But we really need the mindset. We need the time to go back and get used to it and spend some time on that.
Yeah.
It doesn't come. So if it is very important, we are going to do it, because we need to see what our CPAs are doing, what our accountants are doing, and everything else. But it will
Mm-hmm.
never be a strength of ours. So that is where we need to go back and really work with us. And that's a great way to segue to the next one, is building bridges, or what we call is networking.
Yeah.
So to that point, if that is something doesn't come naturally to me, I want somebody to network and work with somebody who is right for me, who is very, very strong in those aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And that will play a very big role in the networking basis. We really want to go back and expand our horizons. So one of the main things you mentioned a few minutes ago was looking at different functions, looking at different businesses, looking at different things, and how do you go back and borrow best practices, right? In
Yeah.
the networking, that is the advantage you have. If you go back and look at my circle with whom I meet, there are some people who are photographers, some people who are musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and they have their own business. But I keep interacting with them to see how they do their business, how do they go about doing the market, and there's a lot of learning that happens with me.
Yeah.
Then I have HR executives on one side who are only dealing with HR consulting. There's somebody who are only problem solving in Lean and Six Sigma operation actions. So if you look at all of those multiple pieces, I'm constantly networking to see who and what can I learn. Like you are my
Mm-hmm.
technology guy. You always help me to learn the technology piece of it. So each one of us is, as an entrepreneur, you're always building those relationships. You're always learning from those experiences.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think what I like to share with people as it relates to networking is more farming, not hunting. So
Yes.
when you're networking, you're building relationships. Like you go to a quote unquote networking event. Some people think you show up and you hand out a bunch of cards, kind of force them in people's hands, and the more cards, the more successful you were. Not true. When we're talking about networking, we're talking about farming, which is plant a seed, water a seed, tend it, take care of it, nurture it. And that's what you need to be with this network that you're building, is you need to build relationships and not look for anything out of it. Look to add value to it. Look to add value to people, be a value add to them, whether it's, hey, can I jump on a phone call with you? I know we just met, but I want to ask you something about my business. Yeah, let's do it. You give them 15, 20 minutes of your time. Had one of these phone calls yesterday, right? I don't know if any business will come out of it, but that's not the point. I'm building my network. I'm adding value. And eventually, somewhere down the road, I'm going to have an ask, right? I'm going to need something, and I'm going to say, hey, I know this person, and I've been having conversations with them. I've been talking to them. We're friends. We're connected. I'm going to ask them about this specific HR thing or whatever. This person was an HR person. So this HR challenge that I'm having, and I'll be able to get insights from them. So and what I like to do is I like to create synergistic relationships. So if in my network, I meet somebody new and they tell me what they're into or what they do, I try to think, is there somebody already in my network that they could really be compatible, maybe do business with each other, maybe help each other because of what their needs are. And so I try to connect them, not a salesy way, but hey, I thought you two might click. You might hit it off. You're both interested in whatever. And I make those connections. Now I just added value to those people. And those people, when they think, I have a problem or I need somebody, let me reach out to Drew and see if he knows anybody in this industry. So with that networking, you're just constantly, it's not about knowing today what this person can do for you. It's saying, I'm going to invest in them. I'm going to add value to them. And somewhere down the road, I might need to ask back. And so that's kind of how I think of with networking.
Yeah, Drew, in the marketing or sales world, what I call that networking piece of it, get the share of mind.
Mm.
So go back and make sure whoever you're networking, get the share of mind with your expertise, your giving, your helping, whatever it is. Go back and make sure you get the share of mind. Because one thing in the world is once you got the share of mind, you will ultimately get the share of wallet.
Yeah, there you go.
So take the time to understand people, because I have some people who got business after 8 years and I didn't even
Wow.
expect.
Yeah.
And if you look at it right now, in the last 4 or 5 years, 50 to 60% of business is because I developed relationship with people in the past. 50% of my new business coming from friends, family, relationships.
Yeah.
Raj, I can't do this. Are you ready? Do you have capacity? Can you take care of this? That is a common thing.
Yeah.
Last week on the West Coast, I was there and one of the friends said, Raj, one of my friend is in trouble. He needs some of these things. Can you spend a couple of hours? I said, let's go have lunch. We spent 2 hours lunch talking everything else. And I said, hey, these are some of the things. He was very excited. He said, Raj, can you please give me a proposal? I would love to work with you. I didn't expect that. I just went there because a friend called me and I gave them what I could give them.
Yeah.
But he's ready to go back and look at it. So sometimes it happens in a week.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect. I didn't go with the expectation of asking business, and I didn't ask for it. It came as a request.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a couple of people 2 years ago they introduced, we met, we spoke everything else. They just came back and said, Raj, we are working with it. So we went and spent some quality time with them and did some assignment for them last month.
Yeah. That's great.
Constantly. So share
Yeah.
of mind, networking for share of mind, which results in share of wallet.
I love that. I love that. Way to put a bow on it. So let me just recap real quick. I know you're going to give us the sixth one, but we've got
Yes.
The growth mindset. Having that growth mindset is first and foremost. Then the visionary mindset, being able to kind of see the future and forecast what's going on. Then change. You gotta have this mindset where you're fluid and you're adapting to the constant changes of the environment. I mean, look at the business environment we're in right now. It is changing all the time.
Yes.
Then you've got the ability and the mindset to embrace risk. And then we talked about networking. Number 5 is networking. Okay, close this thing out. What is the sixth key mindset of successful entrepreneurs?
So this is very important for everybody else, but very few people follow. Keeping grounded, having the emotional and mental health, basically making sure that there is no burnout. A lot
Yeah.
of entrepreneurs, they think the more they can work hard, they can survive for longer.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed, even my own personal experience and the research out there, is the people who are very, very grounded, they have a very good control over their emotional and mental health. They are growing much faster than the people who are working much harder.
Wow.
So example, you might find somebody who's working only 50 hours versus somebody working 80 hours. And people who are working 80 hours think, because they don't have grounded, they don't have the emotional piece of it, they don't have the mental health, they are stuck in their own ways. They become the bottleneck for their own growth. Whereas the person who is only working 50 hours now, they have a personal life, good emotional life, good mental health. Now they're thinking, being proactive. Remember the point 2, visionary? Whenever
Yeah.
you're busy, you don't have the time to be a visionary. You don't have the time to think about calculated risk. So this is one of the things I would say, if you look at all 6, The biggest differentiator for somebody who is growing much faster compared to somebody who is not growing faster, this sixth point is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
They might have all five, but if the sixth one is missing, they're not growing fast enough.
Wow. That's big. But that, the keeping grounded, emotional and mental health, self-awareness, all those, I mean, we just did a whole series on emotional intelligence because it's so important. But the idea and the ability to kind of understand yourself, to be able to prioritize and determine what is most important to you, to figure out what motivates you, what demotivates you, what is a sign that I need to take a step back. I know some entrepreneurs that, highly, highly successful, but a couple different ones said to do everything they were doing, they ended up drinking so many energy drinks that they blew out their adrenal gland. I don't even really know what that means, but
Okay.
they had to get off the caffeine, slow down, and reset. And I'm just a firm believer that, if we don't take strategic rests from time to time, whatever that looks like for you, our body will take a rest. I just believe that. I believe if you don't plan and proactively take times, whether that's one day off a week to reset, spend time with your family, do whatever it is. I like to practice that. One day off a week where I don't do work. And the only rule is I just don't do work. So I can do anything I want, but I just don't do what it is that I do to make money. And for me, when I began that practice, shortly after I started a family, what I recognized just through the process is that now I have very clear deadlines. When I know that I'm going to take Sunday off or Saturday off, I know that I have to have everything done that needs to be done by Monday. I have to have it done by Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. And so it creates this almost automatic prioritization where you attack your work in a different way because you understand there is a stopping point. When you're burning it at both ends and you're going every day, no matter what, every opportunity, everything, all the time, then there's no stopping point. And I think you're less efficient when you do it that way.
Very less efficient. You're right. So I can share one example from the couple of weeks ago. This was a business owner working very, very hard, had his business for almost now say 25, 26 years. He makes about 7 million in revenue. So we spent 3 hours trying to look at his business, try to look at everything else. He had all the 5 elements pretty comfortable. The sixth one was the one which is pretty much the work-life balance, integration, stress, and burnout was there. Yeah. And after analyzing everything else, in 3 years, I showed him a roadmap taking his 7 million to 20 million and what he needs to do.
Wow.
He needs to hire 4 good leaders and make a few changes in his life. So instead of working like 2 o'clock every day morning, he starts at 8, he goes up till 12, 1, 2 in the night every single day. And he's been doing it for 25 years.
My goodness.
So I told him, these are some of the things, if you can go back, and we got a roadmap set. He was like so surprised that he could make change. So now we are planning and helping him to come up with a 3-year strategic plan to take a $7 million to 20 million. And he'll be working less than what he's working.
Wow.
So that is where it is. So that is how important the segment 6, keeping grounded, basically emotional and mental health, basically work-life balance, work-life integration, whatever you want to call it. Minimizing the stress, minimizing the burnout, and really recharging your batteries on a regular basis, especially on a weekly basis. Yeah. That is something which I would say most of the entrepreneurs can really get a lot of value from that.
Yeah, having a long-term strategy and perspective on this whole process. We never know when we're gonna die, but we can't pretend like it's gonna be tomorrow. We need to plan as if we're gonna live a long life, and we want to be healthy and available. And especially if you have a family, you really need to spend some time, investing in your family. And making sure that you build those relationships, because I think you'll want them. Everybody who's old and at the end of their life, they tend to say things like, I wish I spent more time with family, not I wish I spent more time at work, you know?
Yes,
So
yes.
it gets very clear as we get older. And so if we can take from that wisdom and apply it now, I think taking little breaks along the way will definitely help you stay in the game longer and do it more efficiently and effectively. Well, this is fantastic stuff, and all the stories that you told, Raj, were so relevant, so practical. You've worked with so many entrepreneurs. I mean, even before we started, I was running something by you, and you, because of your experience, you were able to tweak my thinking on a small business that I was talking to you about. And so so much value. I hope all the listeners have been able to get a lot of value. Listen to it again if you missed any of the components of that mindset of a successful entrepreneur. And send in your questions. We want to hear from you. Send in your questions. If you have questions if you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner, you have questions, this podcast is for you. We want to answer those questions. It's the Have It Your Way podcast. Maybe that could be our nickname. We want to find out what your problems are, what your challenges are, and then we want to provide answers and solutions to that. So please send them in. The email is in the information below, and we'd love to hear from you. So with that, Raj, any closing thoughts before we go?
Yeah, just go back and say the email address is advisor@vrt9.com. Just send an email to that, and in one of the podcasts, we'll go back. And if you have a specific question, we will respond to your email as well with a suggestion we have. So that is there. We will go back and do that piece of it. But again, please look at it. Make sure that you're following all 6. Even if you do the top 5 very well and you miss the 6th, you will be getting into trouble. And that is where I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs really getting into trouble with the 6th. So definitely pay attention.
And here's the challenge for those of you listening. If you say that you're good at the top 5 and you're good at adapting and changing, this is the test. Will you adapt and change and incorporate step number 6 and deviate from maybe what you've done for years, like this one entrepreneur that Raj is talking about? That's my challenge to you. I challenge you to focus on your mental health and see if it doesn't help you increase your effectiveness and your efficiency for your organization.
And on the same lines, send us your story and tell us how it worked for you. I would love to hear the stories. Send us an email with it. And we would really appreciate to hear how you have adapted, how you have changed, and how your life, personal and business, has changed.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. This was another fun podcast. Raj, thank you so much for your time. It's the Raj and Drew Show for entrepreneurs. We're here for you, and you all have a great week. We'll see you on the next one.
Okay. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate it.